We all want to get to our goal weight and be healthy. So we want to optimize our diet as much as possible to achieve those goals. So when it comes to protein, which is better, eggs or beef or any other type of meat? If you are getting most of your protein from beef or any other type of meat, and you notice that you are not losing weight, blood glucose is rising, and your food noise and health problems are making a reappearance. Or if you just want to accelerate your weight loss and optimize your health, I recommend increasing the ratio of protein from eggs compared to the ratio of protein you are getting from beef and other types of meat. That doesn't mean cutting out beef completely, because beef is a great source of nutrition, zinc and heme iron, for example, and it provides some variety to your diet. But don't rely on it as your only or primary source of protein. In this video, I'll present some of the evidence that shows that eggs are better than beef, and then I will explain why. I will explain that the reason that eggs are better than beef is due to their antibacterial properties. Powerful antibacterial properties kill off the bad bacteria in the gut, which are the real cause of obesity and poor health. The new science is revealing that the true cause of obesity is bad bacteria in the gut. When the gut bacteria of obese humans and animals are transferred to lean humans and animals, they in turn develop obesity. And equally, when the gut bacteria of lean humans and animals is transferred to obese humans and animals, the obese humans and animals become lean, healthy, and muscular. There are many, many studies which attest to this. So, as you can see, the gut is controlling the whole show. It's controlling how much body fat you have, it's controlling how much muscle you have, it's controlling how much energy you have, it's controlling your metabolic rate, it's controlling how many calories you absorb from your food in the gut, and is controlling your health in every way. And it is how eggs and beef and other types of meat affect the gut microbiome, which explains why eggs are better than beef for weight loss, as I shall argue. Eggs have powerful antibiotic properties. They kill off the bad bacteria in the gut. They kill off the bacteria which is fattening, and this helps to reverse obesity and poor health. Studies show that egg whites and egg yolks have peptides with powerful antibacterial activity. Why is it that eggs have these powerful antibacterial properties compared to beef and other types of meat? Eggs need to have antibacterial properties because they're designed by nature to protect a developing chick in a warm, nutrient-rich environment where bacteria would otherwise thrive. In contrast, meat is part of a body which is protected from bacteria by the immune system. It didn't need to develop intrinsic antibacterial properties. Now, let's check that these antibacterial properties of eggs do translate to better weight loss and health outcomes in the scientific literature. I couldn't find any studies on eggs in a low carbohydrate context, but even in a high carb context, eggs still seem to have either beneficial effects or neutral effects. A randomized control trial examined children aged 8 to 14 who were eating whole eggs or a protein substitute for 35 weeks. The study found that whole egg supplementation promoted healthy growth and favorable gut microbiota changes in children. Children consuming whole eggs had improvements in height compared to controls, and there were no negative effects on inflammation markers, liver function, cholesterol, or metabolic markers were reported. Of course, this is in children, but as a side takeaway, it does indicate that if we want our children to grow to their fullest height potential, it might be beneficial to give them more eggs. As in this study, the eggs promoted improvements in height compared to the non-egg protein. And a systematic literature review and meta-analysis published in 2024 found that egg consumption had no consistent effect on TMAO or inflammatory markers. On the other hand, meat does not fare as universally well as eggs in a higher carb diet context. As I have explained in other videos, the context of the rest of the diet makes a huge difference to how any particular nutrient behaves in the gut. And we know that we have a much greater tolerance for being able to eat more meat in a low carbohydrate context. But the fact that in higher carb contexts, meat does fare worse in studies compared to eggs underlines the idea that eggs are a safer protein source than meat, and this may be in both low and high carb contexts. Before I read out these studies, let me clarify I'm not bashing meat or going into depths on the merits of each study. I'm merely providing some studies which show that meat does not fare universally well in the way that eggs do. For example, a study published in The Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology found that consuming 100 grams of unprocessed red meat daily was associated with an increased risk of type 2 diabetes. And in the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer, classified unprocessed red meat as probably carcinogenic to humans. And research published in PLOS Medicine indicated that both unprocessed and processed red meat intakes were associated with an increased risk of total mortality, cardiovascular disease, and cancer mortality in both men and women. Again, I am not bashing meat or saying it is bad, and especially not in a low-carb context. But the fact that we barely get any negative studies about eggs, where there are a lot more negative studies about meat in a higher carb context, does support the idea that eggs are safer than meat in both low and high carb contexts, i.e. you can get away with more eggs, whereas you might need to put some type of restraint on meat if you are finding that your low carb diet has stalled, or you're getting a reoccurrence of health problems coming back, your appetite's going up. You might want to be looking at bringing the meat down and having more of your protein from eggs. And more evidence for the superiority of eggs is the egg fast. It is a well-known stall breaker in the low-carb keto world. This is because these people have adapted to the low-carb diet, and now the amount of meat they were getting away with before is fueling the growth of too much bacteria. When they swap to eggs, the antibacterial properties of eggs enables them to get their bad bacteria sufficiently low that they can start losing weight again. I'm not really a fan of the egg fast because it's just too depressing and might put you off eggs for life. But it does show that in practice, eggs are more effective for weight loss than beef and other types of meat. I am a fan of incorporating more eggs where you can. So on a low-carb diet, reducing the ratio of beef and meat and increasing the ratio of eggs. So instead of just having 2 large beef burgers, you might have 1 beef burger and eggs. Bacon and eggs, mackerel and eggs, omelettes, chaffles, meringues, anything that can bring that ratio of eggs up and the meat ratio down if you are not getting the results that you were hoping for on your low-carb diet. On the other hand, on a high-carbohydrate, low-fat diet, you might want to experiment with more egg whites as a protein source, and even with more whole eggs. It will be a matter of experimentation to see how much you can get away with. Obviously, whole eggs are far more delicious than egg whites. Obviously, if you can incorporate more whole eggs into your high-carb, low-fat diet, due to their antibacterial properties, you would want to do that. You don't want to deprive yourself if you don't need to. And not to mention the wealth of nutritional value in egg yolks: choline, vitamin A, D, B, E, K, minerals, selenium, phosphorus, zinc, iron, calcium, lutein, and zeaxanthin antioxidants. If you can get away with adding more eggs in, you certainly should. What is your experience with eggs? Have you found that they help your weight loss? Have you broken a stall with an egg fast before? It would really help to hear people's different experiences with the eggs, either on a high-carb, low-fat diet or on a low-carb, higher-fat diet. In my next video, I will be exploring the issue of dairy on both a low-carb, high-fat diet and also on a high-carb, low-fat diet. Does dairy stall weight loss? Why might it stall weight loss? Which types of dairy might stall weight loss? And why it might be an individual matter. If you would like to be notified when I put that video out, please do subscribe. Thanks for listening and hopefully see you in the next one.